Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts or story in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. Now before I begin, tell me where you are watching from. I'd love to know which cities and towns are joining me for this memory that stayed with me for years. It happened on an unexpectedly warm afternoon in early spring, the kind where sunlight feels gentler than usual and the air carries a soft promise of something new. I had been sitting on my porch, trimming the dry ends of my potted herbs, when I saw my nephew Aaron walking up the driveway. He wasn't supposed to visit that day. In fact, I hadn't seen him for a few weeks, and the surprise of his sudden appearance made me set my scissors down immediately. He was taller than the last time I saw him, though I swear boys his age grow in sudden leaps rather than slow steps. His shoulders seemed broader, his expression more thoughtful. But what caught my attention most was the way he approached, slow, careful, like he was unsure of how welcome he'd be, even though he'd always had a place in my home. "Aunt Laura?" he called gently, lifting his hand in a small wave. I smiled and stood from the porch chair. "Aaron? What brings you here, sweetheart?" I brushed off the bits of herb leaves from my hands and stepped toward him. He gave a nervous half-smile, the kind that tries to hide something stirring underneath. "I was in the neighborhood and I needed to talk, if that's okay." The way he said it made me pause. There was something in his voice, a weight, a hesitation, that told me this wasn't a casual visit. I nodded and opened the screen door. "Of course it's okay. Come inside." Once we were in the living room, he sat on the edge of the couch, posture stiff, hands clasped tightly in front of him. He looked around the room as though searching for familiar comfort, the family photos on the wall, the soft ticking of the mantel clock, the lingering scent of the lavender candle I'd lit earlier. I watched him try to gather himself. "Do you want some tea?" I asked softly, giving him an easy opening. He shook his head with a small laugh. "No, thank you. If I drink anything right now, I might spill it." His honesty made me smile gently. I took a seat across from him, leaning forward just enough to show I was fully present. "Aaron, what's wrong? You look like you've been carrying something heavy." He inhaled slowly, eyes lowering. "Yeah, I guess you could say that." He rubbed his hands together, then stopped, then started again, as though his body couldn't decide what to do with all the tension. I didn't know who else to talk to. Mom's busy, Dad doesn't really listen, and I don't know, I just felt like you'd understand. His words reached me in a place deeper than he probably realized. There is something profoundly moving about being chosen as someone's safe place, especially when they're at an age where they rarely admit needing anyone at all. "I'm here," I told him softly. "Whatever it is, you're not alone." He nodded but didn't speak right away. The sunlight from the window settled across his face, highlighting the quiet worry in his expression. It was the kind of look someone wears when they're wrestling with a question that scares them, not because of the answer, but because of the courage it takes to speak it aloud. "Aunt Laura," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, "there's something I need to ask you. Something that's been on my mind for a long time." The room seemed to still around us. Even the clock's ticking felt quieter. "Take your time," I said. He swallowed hard, as though bracing himself. "I don't know if the question is wrong, or if it'll make you think differently of me, but I can't ignore it anymore. And I think you're the only person I trust enough to ask." His eyes lifted to mine, steady, vulnerable, honest. "What is it, Aaron?" I asked, gently but firmly. He hesitated for a moment, breathing in deeply, then exhaled like he was letting go of something that had lived in him for too long. "The thing I want to ask," he said slowly, "I don't even know how to put into words yet. I just know it's important, and I need your help understanding it." I felt the air change, subtle but unmistakable. A shift toward something deeper, something rooted in emotion rather than confusion. I settled back slightly, preparing myself, knowing we were only at the beginning of a conversation that would take us down a path neither of us expected, but one that would stay with me long after that afternoon sunlight faded. He didn't speak right away. His gaze drifted to the floor, tracing some invisible pattern on my living room rug, as if the words he needed might be hiding there. I could see the conflict in his expression, the urge to speak mixed with the fear of saying the wrong thing. I didn't want to rush him, so I sat quietly, letting the moment breathe. After a long pause, he drew in a slow breath and finally lifted his eyes. "It's hard to explain," he said softly, "because it's not just one thing. It's a lot of little things that built up over time." I nodded, encouraging him to continue. "You know how some people just make you feel calm?" he asked. "Not because they try to, just because they're steady. Like the way they talk or the way they listen makes everything feel a little clearer." I felt a gentle ache in my chest. "Yes," I said. "I know exactly what you mean." He leaned back slightly, relaxing just a fraction. I realized I don't get that feeling from many people. Not from Dad. He's always busy or upset about something. Not from my friends. They are great, but they don't really listen. His voice wavered, just for a moment. "But you do." Those last two words carried a weight larger than their size, filled with sincerity, trust, and something he had clearly wrestled with for a long time. I kept my voice calm. "I'm glad you feel comfortable here, Aaron. You've always been able to talk to me." He nodded again, but there was still tension in the set of his shoulders. "Yeah, but lately I've been asking myself why that feeling is so strong. Why I keep remembering conversations we had years ago. Why I feel this pull to ask you things I can't ask anyone else." His honesty wasn't uncomfortable. It was disarming, unexpected, and deeply human. I asked gently, "What kinds of things?" He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing in a nervous motion. "Questions about myself. Questions about life. Questions I'm scared to ask other people because I don't want to sound foolish." His fingers fidgeted in his lap. "Sometimes I wonder if something's wrong with me for feeling so, drawn to certain memories, or drawn to certain people." I could see it then, the heart of what had been weighing on him. Not romance, not confusion about boundaries. Something much more fundamental, a search for identity, stability, and belonging. "There's nothing wrong with you," I said softly. "It's normal to be drawn to people who made you feel safe." He blinked, his eyes softening. "That's what I hoped you'd say." He paused before adding, "Because some days, when everything feels overwhelming, I think about how I felt when I was younger, and you'd ask if I wanted to talk. You always meant it. You didn't rush me or brush me off." I remembered those moments, the time he cried after losing a school competition, the time he got in trouble for something he didn't do, the quiet afternoons when he sat at the kitchen table doing homework, just because my house felt easier to breathe in, as he once put it. "I didn't realize those memories stayed with you," I admitted. "They did," he said quietly. "And that's why I'm here. Because there's something confusing I need to ask, something I've been afraid to say out loud." His voice lowered, trembling with sincerity. "I don't want you to misunderstand it. I'm not trying to cross any lines. I just want to understand what this feeling is, and why it's connected to you." The room grew still again, filled with that soft tension that only comes when someone is revealing a truth they've guarded for too long. "Aaron," I said gently, "you can ask me anything. You won't scare me, and you won't disappoint me." He breathed out slowly, visibly relieved, but still gathering the courage for the question he had carried to my doorstep. "There's something I need to tell you first," he said, "and it's the reason I couldn't answer my own question earlier." His hands trembled slightly as he tried to hold them still. "The truth is, I don't fully understand the way I feel. I only know it scares me and comforts me at the same time." He paused, lifting his eyes to mine, wide, earnest, and searching. "And before I tell you the actual question, I need to know you're ready to hear it." I could tell he wasn't asking for permission to shock me. He was asking for reassurance that whatever he said next wouldn't break something between us. His eyes held that fragile mixture of fear and hope, the kind that only appears when someone stands on the edge of a truth they've never spoken aloud. "I'm ready," I told him gently. "You're safe here, Aaron. Just say what's on your mind." He exhaled slowly, almost shakily, as if those words alone had given him enough strength to continue. He leaned back against the couch, his shoulders relaxing just a little. The sunlight had shifted again, warming the side of his face and catching the faint tremble in his jaw. "The thing I've been trying to understand," he began, "is why I feel such a strong connection to the moments we shared when I was younger. Why they feel important now, even more than they did back then." He paused, his voice softening into something reflective. "I remember the afternoons I spent here when Mom was working late and Dad was too stressed to really listen. You'd just sit with me, not trying to fix anything, just being there. And I didn't realize how rare that was until I got older." He looked down at his hands, tracing a small mark on his thumb. "I guess I started asking myself why those memories matter so much. Why they feel like a place I keep returning to in my mind whenever things feel too heavy." His honesty rang through the room like something gentle and true. I didn't interrupt him, not even when I felt emotion rise in my chest. I wanted him to get it all out. He continued, "I thought maybe it was nostalgia, or maybe I was remembering a simpler time. But it wasn't that. It was the feeling I had around you, the calm, the clarity. Like I could talk without being judged, like someone actually saw me." His voice cracked slightly, not with sadness, but with something far deeper, relief mixed with vulnerability. "And lately," he said quietly, "I've been wondering if it's normal to feel so, attached to that kind of comfort. If it's normal to look at someone who cared for you and feel this strong pull to understand what that bond means now." He lifted his head slowly, his eyes earnest and thoughtful. "I'm not talking about anything wrong," he clarified. "I just feel something familiar when I'm here. Something grounding, and I don't know what to call it." Those words settled over us like soft dust, delicate and honest. What he described wasn't inappropriate. It was the emotional imprint of being cared for during a foundational time in his life. It was connection, memory, and the search for understanding all woven together. "You're trying to understand why your heart remembers certain people," I said softly. "Why certain connections stay with us long after the moment has passed." He nodded gently. "Exactly. Because when I think about the people who shaped me, you're at the center of one of those memories. And I don't know what that means. Not yet." I felt my breath catch, not from discomfort, but from the unexpected gravity of his words. I leaned forward, choosing my words with care. "Aaron," I said, "there is nothing strange about feeling connected to someone who gave you stability. Some bonds form quietly over years, without either person realizing how meaningful they are until much later." He blinked, letting those words sink in. For the first time since he arrived, the tightness in his expression eased. "There's something else," he whispered. "Something I haven't said yet." My heart steadied. "Tell me." He swallowed, gathering courage. "The question I wanted to ask, the one I couldn't answer myself, is this. Why do I feel more at peace talking to you than anyone else? Why does my heart feel safer here than it does in my own home? And is it wrong to want to understand that feeling?" His voice was steady now, but quiet, like he knew the truth he'd spoken was bigger than he planned to reveal. The afternoon light deepened around us, turning warm and golden, wrapping the moment in a kind of gentle suspense. He wasn't finished. "And before you answer," he added softly, "I need to tell you one more thing. the part I've been afraid to admit. He looked directly into my eyes, vulnerable and brave all at once. The reason this is so hard to talk about is because the peace I feel around you has started to feel like something I don't want to lose. The room grew so still that for a moment even the distant sounds from outside seemed to fade away. His words weren't romantic, and they weren't reaching for something inappropriate. They were the trembling confession of someone who'd finally identified the one place in his life that felt steady and was terrified of losing it. I let that truth settle gently between us before responding, choosing my words with care. "Aaron," I said softly, "peace is not something people find often. And when they do, it can feel precious, even fragile." I paused, watching the way he held my gaze, searching for reassurance. But feeling connected to a person who made you feel safe, that isn't something to fear. It means the bond mattered. He exhaled, a quiet rush of relief mixed with uncertainty. The tension in his shoulders loosened, but he still looked like someone bracing for an answer that might alter something inside him. "I just didn't want to misunderstand it," he said, "or hold on to something I shouldn't. I didn't want to cross lines or mistake comfort for something it isn't." His voice carried both maturity and confusion, an honest struggle of a young man trying to understand the roots of his own emotions. "You haven't crossed any lines," I assured him. "You've been respectful, thoughtful, and brave enough to speak honestly. That alone says a lot about who you're becoming." He nodded slowly, absorbing my words. The sunlight filtering through the window rested warmly across the side of his face, catching the softness in his expression. He looked younger and older all at once, caught between childhood memories and adult understanding. "I think I held it in for so long," he admitted, "because I didn't want to lose the one person who made me feel grounded. And I thought that if I said something the wrong way," he swallowed, "you might pull away." My heart tightened, not in fear, but in empathy. I leaned forward just enough to show him I wasn't distancing myself. "I'm not going anywhere," I said gently. "What you shared doesn't push me away. If anything, it helps me understand what you've been carrying." His eyes softened further, filled with something like gratitude. "So, what is this feeling then? Why does it feel so strong?" I took a moment to breathe before answering, wanting to give him truth without overwhelming him. "Some connections shape us more deeply than we realize," I explained, "especially the ones formed during times when we needed support. You trusted me when you were younger, and that trust didn't disappear. It grew with you. What you're feeling now isn't wrong. It's the recognition of a bond that has mattered for a long time." His shoulders relaxed, and a small, almost relieved smile touched his lips. "So it's not strange?" "No," I said. "It's human. It's emotional memory. And it's a sign of how deeply you value genuine understanding." He looked down at his hands again, but this time not in shame, more in reflection. "It feels good to hear that. I didn't want this to be a burden." "It isn't," I said, "and it never was." A soft quiet settled over us, warm and unhurried, the kind of silence that comes not from avoidance, but from two people recognizing something true and meaningful between them. After a few moments, he looked up again. "There's something else I want to say, but this part feels easier now." "Go ahead," I encouraged. He took a steady breath. "I want to be better at talking about what I'm feeling, and I want to learn how to understand myself without being scared of the answer. Today was the first time I felt like I could actually do that." A warmth spread through me, the quiet kind that comes when you realize you've made a difference in someone's life without even intending to. "I'm proud of you, Aaron," I said. "It takes courage to look inward, and even more courage to speak honestly." His smile deepened just slightly, a small, genuine expression that carried both relief and gratitude. "I think I'm starting to see things more clearly now. Not everything, but more than before." "That's how growth works," I told him. bit by bit, conversation by conversation. He nodded, letting the moment settle. Then, with a gentleness that mirrored his first steps up the driveway, he stood. "I should probably go," he said, "but thank you for listening, for not judging, for helping me understand what this feeling really is." "You're welcome here any time," I said sincerely. "And whenever you need to talk, I'm here." He paused at the doorway, sunlight catching behind him, casting a warm frame around his silhouette. He gave me one last look, soft, grateful, steady. "That means more than you know," he said quietly before stepping outside. When the door closed behind him, the house felt warm, not empty, not even quiet, just filled with the lingering presence of a moment that had deepened something real between us. A moment of trust rediscovered, of growth unfolding, of emotional clarity that would follow him long after that afternoon ended. And every time I remember it, I'm reminded of how powerful a single honest conversation can be, how it can change someone, guide them, and leave a quiet, lasting truth that stays with you for years.